All right, your presenters today are Sean Berry and Sumeet Hemnani. Sean is let's see. Oh, I lost that email, Sean.
Don't worry about it.
Sean has been in automation reporting solutions since the early days of Blade Logic and has worked in services, pre-sales, customer experience, and now platinum engineering for us. And Sumeet Hemnani just completed his master's degree and is on my team. So congratulations to him. He's a tech marketing genius responsible for the full suite of our automation products as well, and will be helping Sean with the presentation and demo today. All right, with that, one last thing. I do have everybody's lines muted except for the presenters. If you want to ask a question, you can chat with me and ask for, but have your line unmuted. If you've dialed in directly from a number, I'll need to know what your number is to be able to unmute you. But I prefer during the course of the presentation, we use the Q&A window if at all possible. All right, with that, Sean, Sumeet, take it away.
Perfect, thanks. So welcome everybody. As Seth said, good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on your time zone, or if you're in Australia, I believe it's the middle of the night there, so my apologies to our colleagues there. What we're here to talk about is the new solution from BMC called TrueSight Smart Reporting, and in this case, it is smart reporting for server automation, and that's going to be something that's very interesting. I'd like to start by thanking my colleague Sumeet, who...
You've been muted. To unmute yourself, press *6.
Early customer and field feedback on these solutions, and also builds out the demo environment in which we show these solutions. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the new solution. We're going to talk a little bit about why we have this new solution. We're going to talk about some architecture, and we're going to talk about, I'll step over to the agenda here momentarily. So we're going to talk about the platform and what that platform means for our TrueSight customers and how that's going to make your lives better. We're also going to talk about architecture and requirements, basically what you need to use this new solution. We're going to talk about how Smart matches up with the older BDSSA solution, and some things that may be significant improvements for you. So if you have some particular frustrations with the older Cognos-based BDSSA solution, we may have some nice things to show you there. We're also going to talk about how you can migrate from BDSSA and what options you have for getting away from BDSSA and onto smart reporting. There are some deadlines involved with some of these things, and that is an important thing we do need to talk about. So I'm going to cover that, and if I don't, please do remind me. And we're going to go in and do a bit of a demo. I've got a demo environment up, and Sumeet is there as we speak. We'll talk a little bit about how that works. So that's the agenda we have in front of us. We have about 5 minutes. I'm not planning on using all of the time. I'm certain there will be a lot of questions about how the solution works, how to migrate. Sounds like somebody's making breakfast. But I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions as we go. So I'm going to make sure to leave some time for that at the end. And as Seth mentioned, do ask questions in the Q&A. We have a number of people much smarter than myself on there to help address any questions you have. And of course, anything they're not able to get to, if by some miracle there's some question I can answer, I'll make sure to get that. So the idea behind the smart reporting platform is historically our TrueSight customers, especially server automation, operations manager, capacity, and so forth, have had different reporting solutions. Some of them based on business objects, some of them based on Cognos, different technologies. One of the goals of the TrueSight Smart Reporting platform is to pull all of the TrueSight solutions into a common reporting platform so that you have fewer installations to manage, fewer technologies to manage, fewer things to train on, less troubleshoot. And so that's kind of the goal of the overall reporting platform. We've had some very good experience with Yellowfin. It's a very popular solution, very flexible for what we need to do, and has a much easier to use interface than the historical BDSSA. It's going to, as we said, centralize the reporting for all of the TrueSight and DSO products, and it has an easy import function for pulling in content. So overall, all of these things are going to work together to make this environment a lot easier to make the solution a lot easier to install, manage, and build new reports in. So the server automation component is going to continue to use the same data warehouse, and so this is where, if you're at all familiar with live reporting, we tend to think of live reporting as being things that are happening right now. What the server automation component is for smart reporting is, as we said, our long-term historical reporting. You can also think of it as executive reports, longer trend reports. Many organizations have the need to show a month-over-month or even, over the course of a year or even longer trend line for their compliance, for their patching, for their inventory and job utilization. And so in aid of that, with the new smart reporting solution, we've built out, basically almost every single report template that we had in Cognos. There's a equivalent report in Yellowfin that's going to cover that use space, and some of them look a lot prettier than the old Cognos solution. This is also where authentication and access control happens. Pardon me. And this is where we can come in and build custom reports and also distribute reports, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But basically, this is the specific functional area that covers server automation. And then once reports are created, there's some new terminology we need to learn as we get into using smart reporting. And so reports distribution is kind of the general term. Yellowfin calls it broadcasting. So reports can be, of course, saved and exported with multiple options. All your favorites are there, CSV, PDF, Excel, text format, and now Word or text format. Casting, it lets you, as we said, filter and send reports. And the two primary modalities for that are email and FTP. And FTP is particularly handy for our customers. Their initial users for those reports are not so much going to somebody's inbox for somebody to look at. But if, for example, you're exporting a bunch of security compliance reports or patch compliance reports that are going to go into a governance risk and compliance or security incident event management system like Archer or some of those other solutions, you may want to just send them directly to FTP. And so this can remove a step for some of our customers. The other term they use is called advanced broadcasting, and that's where you can run a scheduled report with specific bits from the master report and then send those out via email. So that's how reports are going to get distributed. And there's, of course, APIs for running reports as well. We have a range of types of schedules. Your regular broadcast is what we would think of as your traditional scheduled report. We have a cached filter refresh, where you can basically rerun the report but not send it to anybody. Very popular if you have an executive report that may take more than a minute or two, or more than the patience of some of your customers, more than the amount of time that some of your customers have patience for. But you can basically pre-run that report, and then when they come in to go look at it, they can see it in there without having to have them all sent to their email. Let's see, other types of scheduled reports, and then there's, of course, subscriptions or basically recurring scheduled reports. So lots of nice choices for schedules in there, and I'm sure as you get familiar with the solution, you can go look at it. You can go check it out in the solution. And of course, if you need to see a demo of it, we've got some recorded bits, and your pre-sales team is always happy to show it to you. We've also got a bunch of web videos showing some different specifics. So if there's a particular thing you want to make sure you get to see, do send something in on the Q&A, and we'll make sure that there's a video to cover that. So in terms of what types of reports are available in TrueSight Smart Reporting, there's basically three major types of dashboards. There's your standard sort of what we would think of as a consolidated report with multiple reportlets under the old BDSSA. And basically, that's where you're combining different small reports into one common dashboard. There are also I'm blanking on what KPI means. Key performance indicators. So there are specific KPI dashboards. I'm sure any of you have been working with reporting for any time are familiar with those. Those that generate, yes, Santosha, of course, it will be recorded. Let's see, we are recording, aren't we, Seth?
We are.
Awesome, great. So we have KPI dashboards. They'll show specific metrics. This is very popular in most of our customer environments that use compliance or patching have specific KPIs they're required to meet. And then, of course, you can have a dashboard where you can use, of course, built by someone else. There's, of course, the standard drill down where one element, and it takes you into another part of a report or a more detailed report. And the other thing I particularly like about how some of these reports are built in Smart Reporting is a number of the charts are also clickable, so you can click through to see some of the more detailed bits in the reports. One other thing I particularly like about Smart Reporting is the refreshed user interface. Definitely feels a little less Oracle IBM and a little more cloud friendly. So very excited about that. All right, so now we're going to get into architecture in some detail, and please stay with me. Pardon me. Please stay with me through this. There's a lot to get through, but I think in the end you're going to like what you're going to see. So first of all, as a platform layer, there's the overall Smart Reporting platform, all of which is based on Yellowfin. All of which is going to pull information in from the server capacity and operations core databases. So the solution-specific databases are all going to have data moved into a warehouse, and that warehouse information will then be available on a common platform. You may log into different instances of Yellowfin to see them. But it's going to be the same solution and the same reporting technology under the covers. One thing to note: all of the specific metadata around the reporting solution can be stored in a Postgres database. We know that there are some very specific deadlines for some customers to migrate these solutions. We also know that creating new databases can sometimes come with some lead time. So the fortunate thing about it, like I said, all three of the most popular solutions for the DSO or TrueSight family are all supported on a common platform, and you basically can just plug in whichever solutions you want to use on their new reporting platform. So under the covers, one thing to understand is we've sort of got some different bits under the covers. Here we go. We've got a data warehouse component, and then we have two different initial pages. Two different initial pages going on here. So we still have just like we did under Cognos, we still have a data warehouse. We still have an ETL master and work repository. And then as mentioned, we do have a reporting metadata. You can think of this like the portal database on Cognos is also basically a portal database for Yellowfin under the covers. But the important element of it is you're going to get to keep your data warehouse, and that data warehouse is then used to generate reports, as you're going to see in the user interface. The old ETL solution that was based on Oracle for licensing reasons has been moved to a new solution, and we call it TSSA-DW. That is the ETL method. Looks a lot like the old one. It's still doing all of the same things, but it's going to do them with some slightly different technologies under the covers to get data out of the core database and move it into the data warehouse. When you initially log in, you're going to log into a common reporting platform, and then that's going to cross-launch and kick you over to the server automation instance, and that's going to you're gonna find when you time out occasionally that can be a little bit confusing, but we'll walk through it when we get to the demo area. All right, so at a high level, that's how that works. Let's see, next slide. All right, so let's talk about how these things are, how they're similar and how TrueSight Smart Reporting meets the needs of our data warehouse customers. So the authentication method, the name is for server automation, same or better as they work with BDSSA, Cognos, both secure remote password, Active Directory or Kerberos logins, and then two-factor and RSA. Reporting domains are the same. One improvement that we've seen in going to TSSR is instead of the health and value dashboards, being in a separate solution, they're now all in TrueSight Smart Reporting. So they're easier to find, they're easier to access, and they're of course easier to customize than they historically have been. Of course, there's localization for simplified Chinese, Japanese, and French, and there is an upgrade path from TrueSight Smart Reporting 19.1 to 19.2. You're also going to notice that our version numbers have changed. Instead of using sequential major and minor version numbers, these are now more aligned with sort of a year and quarter format. So you're going to see that's 2019 first release and second release. So there is an upgrade path from 19.1 to 19.2. Let's see. So big new things that we particularly are a fan of. So rather than the very restrictive user-based licensing that was required under the older solution, you can now have any number of users and all users, right? I'm super excited about that. I don't think anybody was excited to be doing accounting on who could have access to reporting and who could create and remove reports and all that sort of thing. So by default, everybody will get to build their own reports. Everybody will get to publish their own reports. Reports are easier to customize. I will tell you, early on, I learned how to write reports in BDSSA up to a certain level. And then if you wanted to be able to build what we called report writer reports, you definitely needed a level of expertise that I was capable of understanding, but I never really got comfortable with. So I'm pretty happy with how easy it is to build reports now under Yellowfin. It's also easier to build the consolidated reports, the dashboards, and you can also now put custom data into reports. So that could include things like server properties and extended objects and so forth. The schedule definitely better, definitely more flexible than in BDSSA. And of course, there's the email, or as Yellowfin calls it, the distribution functionality. So what things are different? So Cognos had an all-in-one installer. Now that we're moving over to the new thing, Smart Reporting and the data warehouse component are two different components, and they do have separate installers. So there are some customers that only use the data warehouse and they don't do any reporting at all. Right? You may be able to get away with just installing the data warehouse component, but they are separate installers, so it's one more step to do. BDSSA supported both insecure and secure HTTP. Data warehouse is not, or the new reporting solution is no longer going to support HTTP. Shouldn't be a major thing, but do let us know. But I think that's going to solve some problems. Help is now only online, which can be helpful because that means you get more updated, faster access to your documentation. There is a separate content pack installer for loading the reports and views, and it's kind of a pretty straightforward thing. That's pretty nice. That also means that you don't need to reinstall Cognos to complete a set of reports. There are some post-install screens in the solution. Some usernames and some URLs have changed. So the old admin user was called BDS admin. The new one's called Data Warehouse admin. To make it a little less solution specific, a little more general. Separate login to get into the back end, sort of see how the ETL is running, that sort of thing. The authentication server has also been updated. That may not mean a lot to most people, but the authentication server is how you do your initial user login, and there have been a number of bugs fixed in that coming into the new release. Slightly different portal URL. Instead of going to /BDS, now you're going to go to /TSSA-DW, and of course the new solution is based on Yellowfin. So I'm going to keep going at this point. Let's talk about migration, right? The key element of the migration is at the end of August, that's next month, so it's about 35 days away now. You should have gotten a flash notification. It's been on communities. It's been in a bunch of other places. But basically, at the end of next month, BMC is no longer going to be able to support BDSSA. Now, what that means for you is that it is time to get migrated to TrueSight Smart Reporting. And so we have talked a bit about how that might be done and how you can coexist. This is something that came out when we were doing initial user reviews of the solution, and we believe it to be a good path for our customers. Of course, if you haven't started moving towards this, the time to talk to your sales team and get a trial license for it is basically right now, and get it loaded into your environment. One of the nice things about the way this solution has been built out is that you can keep Cognos for right now while you migrate your reports to Smart Reporting. And it will still keep working if you have a perpetual license. If you have a term license, chances are you know it, and you're going to have some other challenges. But as long as you have perpetual licensing, you will be able to use Cognos for August 31st. The problem is we're not going to be able to help you with it. So if you call into support for questions about BDSSA after August 31st, unfortunately, due to how the licensing works out, we're not going to be able to help you with it. The good news is if it's been working and, running reports, you can continue to keep using those, but we're not going to be able to support them. The good news is you can stand up TrueSight Smart Reporting in the same environment. And that's going to come with a new ETL process, and we'll talk about that in a second. But basically what you can have is you can keep your current reports on Cognos that are running, and you can stand up the new Smart Reporting, validate that the reports work for you, build out, basically rebuild any custom reports that you're actively using over in Yellowfin, and move forward with Smart Reporting. And then as soon as you have enough of your custom reports or custom schedules or whatever you have from Cognos set up over in Yellowfin, you can go shut Cognos off. And we've gotten a lot of questions about that. And we've also worked with a lot of customers who are looking out and they're saying, I've got 20, 50, 100, maybe 100 plus, reports running every single week. But when we go drill down into them, we say, okay, who's getting this report, right? It turns out that some of the custom reports haven't been run in years. Others of the custom reports, they go talk to their stakeholders, and their stakeholders say, well, I'm not even using that anymore, or I'm using this newer report that makes a lot more sense to me, or, I am getting this report, but I wish it had this other information. chances are very good there's an out-of-the-box report in Smart Reporting that covers substantially what your customers were getting out of BDSSA, and there's a great opportunity to review with them. Are they getting good value out of those reports, and can we set them up to run for you out of Smart Reporting? But as we mentioned, Cognos and BDSSA can coexist with the new Smart Reporting solution. Now, when you go stand it up, the first time you set it up and run, you will need to change some settings in your ETL jobs, and you will need to change the scheduling of some. You may need to change the scheduling of some of your jobs. But the key thing's going to happen when you run your new ETL. The old ETL that you used going through Cognos and BDSSA will be stopped, and those archive schedules will be stopped, and all things will run out of the new Smart Reporting and server automation data warehouse. So while the new one is doing the ETL processes and you're running the new reports, you still will be able to run your old reports. So it's not like there's a hard cutover, or you need to have 80% of your reports rebuilt in Smart Reporting. You can keep running them side by side. But of course, once we're no longer able to provide support for them, you may find that you want to get off of BDSSA sooner than later. All right, so now we're at the demo component. We're at about the bottom half of the hour. Seth, were there any particular questions in the chat panels we wanted to address before we got into the demo, or should we go into the demo and handle more questions afterwards?
The questions in the chat window are being answered written. I will review them afterwards, but I prefer that we get a demo in first, and then we can spend time on the Q&A.
Perfect. I would prefer that as well. Let's see. Nothing like a canned demo. And I'm going to, just for giggles, go log out and log back in. Notice that authentication is going to run on 2 different ports. So you're going to do your initial login on port 9443. In this, of course, you're going to set up your ports to be whatever makes sense for you. And we're going to notice we're going to authenticate into the platform up here on port 9443. And then we're going to get redirected to go pick our role. And of course, my role is going to be BL admins. Global port admins is still there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get redirected over to the actual reporting engine. And notice that the reporting engine runs on a different port. Now, what this means is when you get logged out or timed out or whatever, when you get timed out, you're going to get timed out down here, and you're going to have to go back up to that link for your Smart Reporting. All right, so start of some dashboards in here showing some different things and a bunch of frowny faces. But it also has some history of runs, number of runs. You can see that this is a demo environment, and it's something that we maintain on a periodic basis. So you can see when Sumeet and I have gone in here and run a bunch of jobs over time. But of course, you're also going to see the frequency in your environment. You're going to run on a narrower time window. You're going to see the rates of the different jobs that you run in the environment. So that's the job activity dashboard, which is of course very popular. But let's go browse, and look at some of our reports.
Hey, Sean, do you mind just making that as big as you can? It's a little small on.
Let me come back to that. Okay. Now that I'm kind of down the road. Let's see. I'm going to go into full screen. Let me know, is this still coming through?
Yeah, that's better.
Still sharing? Okay, great. So when you first come in, the first thing that's going to strike you, and it's going to be kind of hard to miss, is that you're going to see a lot more reports, right? And they're not going to be in folders like they were on BDSSA. Now, the good news is you can favorite different reports, right? So if you have particular reports that make sense to you, I'm going to make heavy use of this My Favorites button, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to go pick some dashboards and some compliance reports and some things that I'm going to use on a regular basis. But you're also going to notice that there's going to be a bunch of reports in here that are going to, are going to have a lot more detail than you necessarily need to look at. And the thing that's great about that is it's very easy to see them. The thing that can be a bit of a challenge about them is it can be a lot to navigate. Personal favorite of mine, inventory details. So I'm going to add some of these to favorites and sort of make myself a little favorites bucket of the reports that make sense to me. And of course, once you get this installed in your environment, you're going to find that these things are pretty straightforward to combine. So we've got a lot of different types of jobs or reports, as we mentioned, a lot of patching reports, some RBAC-based and user reports in here. We got a utilization dashboard that shows, how are we using the solution and where are we using it. We've got some health-related dashboards that are looking at some stuff under the covers. And of course, things that help us understand not only how the high-level use cases are trending, but also the rate of utilization. How popular is my environment? How much are our users using it? And then for every major use case, there's a number of reports or dashboards, that are going to give us the drill downs on those things. So as you can see, there's a lot of patching reports in here, a lot of specific reports under the covers. But if you come through and you basically roll them up into the favorites, right, you end up with a nicer, prettier, easier to understand set of reports that matter to you and to your customers, your internal users. So, of course, we mentioned, we went and looked at the job activity dashboard. We've got one for the total number of servers in the environment. In this particular environment, I expect it spiked up a bit at a particular time. Now, the other thing you're going to notice is when you bring up particular reports, you're going to find that they're going to have, they may not always load or show you data initially, and that's something you're going to be a little bit of an adjustment from what you may have been more comfortable with or more familiar with on Cognos, where most of the time, when you would go run a report, it would just pop up with some data, whether it was the right data or not. If you do see a report that shows up blank, come over here and click on this filter and make sure that your run times and your filters there are set to a particular window of time. So this is what dashboard is this? It doesn't say. Yes, so this is the number of servers in contact. And you can see that this environment was smaller and got to be a lot more servers over time. Most recently, we were typically running jobs against 1,000 to 500 servers in any given month. So that is that. And then, of course, you're also going to be able to go find any particular report that you're looking for through the search. And if we go into there's a great job activity trend report in here that's really pretty. There's also some compliance trend reports. Now, we are going to have another full session dedicated to how to build custom reports and who what the easiest way to do those things is. But that's going to be for a separate section. As you can see, some very pretty data around the job activity trends. You can kind of get a sense of, what particular use cases are popular in any particular window of time. And of course, we still have the tabular view like you're familiar with seeing under the covers. You can see the different types of jobs. Of course, we've been running compliance jobs forever. And of course, you can then drill down in to see what types of compliance jobs have been run. And I'm a big fan of kind of some of this drill through capability, the ease of understanding the overall compliance status, the number of rules, how things ran, whether they were successful or not, and kind of a prettier, more user-friendly interface coming through to the reports. So at a high level, that's sort of where we're going to start with these things. We also have a pretty similar interface for a pretty similar interface for ETL. It looks a lot like what you're used to looking at. So I'm probably only going to get into that if we have specific asks around that. But I do want to kind of hit compliance and patch analysis while we're in here. And as mentioned, some reports do take a little longer to run. One thing that's nice about how Yellowfin works is you can have those reports. I've got a particular customer in Louisville, Kentucky that would come through and want to see his reports at 5 a.m. on a Monday, right? Which was definitely earlier than I usually would get in. And so one of the things that he would do is he would say, he would basically say, I want this thing ready to look at when I come in first thing in the morning. And, as many people do who may have, may want a cup of coffee or, something to look at while they're having their cup of coffee. He didn't have a lot of patience for, sitting there and looking at a lot of results or waiting for those things to come in. And so one thing you can do is when you've got these jobs and these jobs are running on a regular basis, they can come through and, he can come through and there we go. Nice pretty patch results. You can have this stuff cached for the bigger jobs, the longer jobs, so that they're already loaded up. They've already, been run and they're running through and, they can come in and see them immediately. So we can see our coverage has definitely decreased, but we're having a better success rate. Our overall rate of patch compliance is down to about 67% because it's a demo environment, and I don't patch as much as I probably should in order to keep something fun in here for you to look at. And you can see the rate of installed patches is increasing, but also the rate of missing patches is also increasing. And as we mentioned, there's drill throughs to all of these things, and some nice highlighting built into it. And we can click right on the graph and say, all right, where does that point correspond to? I'm not sure why that didn't show me anything pretty, but I'm sure there's something else on our dashboard that we can go look at. So that's a high level of the patching stuff. Let's go back to the reporting dashboard. There we go. Yeah. Gonna pick what role we're in. And forgive me, I'm sure that would have come back in a few seconds, but I'm impatient, and so are Sean, we all. Go ahead. Yep.
Quick time check. We've got many questions, so just wondering how much more you want to show before we jump into that.
Yeah. We can talk real quick about how the admin side of it goes, but I think let's see, that should be, Sumeet, that should be just password, right?
Sorry, Sean, can you repeat?
Smart Reporting Admin is just DW Admin, isn't it?
Yes.
Is that BL Admin?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's DW.
It's fine. Let's get to questions. So let me just pull up something pretty for us to look at while we're here. And I will leave something nice on the screen for us to look at while we go through and address questions. Forgive me, guys. I'm connecting to a Chrome instance across RDP to a Windows box from a Mac, and the graphics don't always cooperate with me. So there's a couple of nice, pretty dashboards, and let's get to some questions. I'm going to take this out of full screen, and I will go back to looking at let's see, where is our chat? All right. So let's see, chat or Q&A.
So why don't you, Sean, don't worry about it.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. So
there were quite a few questions around smart reporting, live reporting, and BDSSA. Can you just sort of articulate
Sure.
the relationship and differences between those?
Between smart reporting and BDSSA, what was the third one?
Live reporting.
Right. Okay, great. So, smart reporting is the replacement for BDSSA. Live reporting, which also happens to be based on Yellowfin, and this is a question we've gotten in the past. So, smart reporting is the data warehouse based, the historical and over time view. And live reporting, aka Yellowfin, or sorry, they're both Yellowfin. We used to just call it Yellowfin or live reporting. So live reporting goes and looks at things in real time, and it's designed to help you. Sorry, we've got a bunch of background noise.
Hang on just 1 second. Let me.
Yeah.
The presenter has muted the audience.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Great. So both based on Yellowfin, but live reporting was designed to help you out like in the maintenance window as compliance jobs are being run, right? As you're looking at results in real time, that's what live reporting is for. This one goes against the core database. Smart reporting goes against the data warehouse and looks at things over time. So live reporting is used for right now. It's used for a very narrow window of time. If you're running data cleanup, and most of our customers are running cleanup, the data that live reporting will see will only go back, a couple, 3 weeks, maybe a month. Right? So it's the more short-term solution, but the thing that's really great about it is it's real time. So you can use it to get a real-time view, and then when you want to get the longer view, and you want to go look at understanding, how is my compliance and patching doing over the course of the last year, right? How is my compliance doing over, how am I doing over time, over a longer period of time? Or if I want some prettier options, right? Because you can customize reports over in smart reporting, but for the most part, we're asking customers not to build their own reports over in live reporting.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. With respect to the demo that you did, were those all or mostly out of the box reports?
Yeah, every single one of them was out of the box. Yep.
Perfect. Okay.
Yep.
Let's see. We've got some questions here.
We should mention to get access, you will probably need a trial license to go get this and get it downloaded. And do reach out to your sales team about that, or go ahead.
That's actually a great question. Why don't you talk about the licensing, the way this is licensed, and what the folks will have to do about that?
Right. So smart reporting is part of a newer license. And so if you're on an older license, you may need to migrate licenses. If you bought something relatively recently, hopefully you already got migrated over to the new license. But at a minimum, your sales team should be able to get you a trial license while they work out any licensing challenges. So do reach out to your sales team, and they will set you up with those. And of course,
no cost, correct?
It is designed to be a cost-neutral migration. So if you've owned BDSSA in the past and paid support on it, you will transition over to owning a license for smart reporting, and it should cost similarly to what you're paying for BDSSA. Now, the first thing I will say is I'm not allowed to talk about money at all, so I have no idea what anybody's paying or how they're paying for it, but your people that talk to your salespeople are probably used to and accustomed to having that conversation. We have gone to some lengths to try and make this as painless to customers as possible, though.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
All right, so we have a question here. Mike says, I want to run the new TSSR in parallel with the old BDSSA. Should both products be using the same reporting databases, DW, Masterwork, and Portal? I'm unclear if TSSR and its ETL Job Changes reporting databases such as BDSSA can no longer use them. So in other words, how do you work them in tandem like that? What do we need to know?
Sure. Right. Let me go back to the slide real quick. They're going to use all the same databases. Now, one thing that's going to happen is the first time you run the new ETL, it's going to disable the old ETL, right? So you're going to keep the exact same master repository and data warehouse. Now, the other thing to understand is Smart Reporting and Cognos will need to run on 2 different servers. So you can't install them both on the same single machine, but you can install Smart Reporting on a new Linux or Windows instance. And the only other thing you'll need is that Postgres database to go with the Postgres, SQL, or Oracle database to go with the new Smart Reporting solution. But they can use the same data warehouse repository, data warehouse and ETL databases, and they can use them at the same time. It's just that once you go over to the new thing, you're going to need to stop using the ETL on the old BDSSA solution. And I'm not sure if I answered the question to Mike's satisfaction, but do let me know if I didn't.
Okay. Did we create any kind of a one-pager feature comparison matrix between, this is actually between live reporting and smart reporting. I think you enumerated, the difference between real-time, customization, ability to look at historical data. Do we have anything like that built, or should I put that on the list of maybe some content that we need to get ready?
I'm not sure that we have one of those, but I'm sure we would be able to. I'm sure that we would be able to build one out without too much grief.
Okay.
Just one thing to note about live reporting is that you have to be very careful with live reporting because it's running on a production database, and you don't want to run too many things on live reporting. So it's one of those things that's very crucial.
Well, let's clarify that. So the thing to understand about how live reporting works is that live reporting, smart reporting runs against the data warehouse, right? Which is historically a separate database, and of course it should be a separate database. You can run as many reports over here you want, as fast as you want, and none of those reports will, sort of to translate what Sumeet was saying, none of those reports will impact the performance of your core blade logic infrastructure. Reports that you run against live reporting, because they're run on the same database as server automation is running on at any given point, if you run a lot of reports over here, they can have an impact on the performance of your core blade logic infrastructure. But we can clarify that on the one-pager when we put it together. Let's see.
Okay.
Lots of custom reports, be migrated. So let's get this one on the table. Your reports from BDSSA will not be automatically migrated to Smart Reporting, which is a challenge. The long and the short of it is there's no easy way to take every custom report that's ever been built in Cognos and migrate it over to Smart Reporting. Now, the good news is if you sit down and look at your custom reports, some of them may be lightly customized. Some of them may only have filters on them. There will probably be a couple, 3 in there that are pretty interesting. But for the most part, moving reports over from Cognos, and we've got people who've been in our services organization, other parts of the organization that have been working with our customers to migrate their reports. I would say that 90%, probably 80% of our customers' reports are stock reports with some filters added to it or 1 or 2 other custom fields. There's another 10% that may have, some light customization, and then a last 10% that are heavily customized. Now, if you think about that, when you go back and look at the reports that you have, look at who's getting them, who's using them the last time they've been run. You may find that you have 100 plus, reports that are lightly customized, but you may not be using all of them. The other thing you may find is you've got, what's functionally, I saw somebody mention 300 reports delivered to, internal customers. You may find that that's functionally the same report, 100 or 300 times with some custom filters. So there will be some work to go set up that new report, get it going to your customer, and make sure that it still meets their needs. but for the most part, unless you've got heavily customized reports, and we do have a few customers that have those, you may find that this report migration is easier than you think. So that's something that looks like it came up a few times in the Q&A. Greg asks about trial licenses being converted to a production license. I believe they can. So Greg, if you guys install on the trial license, I believe you should be able to run on a production license afterwards. Always happy to see some of our favorite customers on the thing. Isaac had a question about importing. Go ahead.
Yep, that's the one I was going to highlight there. So. Yep,
importing existing users in data warehouse into smart reporting. So your users in Isaac, I'm assuming you mean BDSSA. Existing users that you have in, so all the user accounts come over from server automation just like they do in BDSSA. When you go set up smart reporting, it should pull your user accounts into smart reporting in an automated fashion. Mike Harris, yes, both products should use the same. That's the one we've talked about earlier. They're going to use the same reporting databases except Portal. So Cognos uses its own Portal database, and you'll have a new Portal database for smart reporting. Everything's reusable. Let's see. New reports server need to be the same OS as the current BDSSA server. John Skelly. So no, they do not need, there's no longer a dependency on the operating system of the report server, as I understand it. Is a new reporting box also needed if no coexistence is needed? So Helmut Erdmann, no, if you shut off Cognos and basically uninstall it and stand up smart reporting, you can reuse the same server. But, we understand that some customers are going to want coexistence. But if you don't need coexistence, you should be able to uninstall BDSSA and stand up smart reporting. But do talk to support about that if you have questions. Number of server, Al Boyd had a question about clarify the number of servers difference between BDSSA and TSSR. It's functionally going to be the same. It's going to be, BDSSA historically required one server for you to run Cognos and the ETL on. Smart reporting is going to require one server to run Yellowfin and the ETL process on. Now, while you're migrating over from one to the other, or if you have a lot of reports to move over, you may end up having two total servers dedicated or installed at any given time. But once you're done migrating off of the old one, you should be able to. Once you're done migrating off, you should be able to shut off the other one. So Mutu had some questions. So one-to-one mapping of the reporting domains, it is pretty similar. There are a couple of details. So the question was, is there a one-to-one mapping of the reporting domains in BDSSA and TrueSight Smart Reporting? You should see a pretty similar reporting model. I know there were some late updates to that, but when you get into going and building custom reports, you're going to see that the data models look very similar, but are going to have a slightly different view. But I think the one thing is we've got two different models for patching. We've got a detailed and a summarized information. But otherwise, the data models are substantially similar between the two, between BDSSA Cognos and Yellowfin. The one thing I do like about the new one is it is a little easier to navigate in some ways. But as we mentioned, we'll have a whole thing where we'll show people how to go build those custom reports. But yeah, the models, I mean the boxes and how everything's laid out look slightly different, but it's pretty straightforward to learn how to do things in the new user interface. So just drag and drop like you did with the old system. So pull over, very straightforward. So I would encourage you guys to get a copy of reporting, get it into your environment, get comfortable with it, start building reports. We, of course, understand that people are going to need, they're going to need time and planning and space to help figure out how they're going to get from BDSSA over to Smart Reporting, and that's also part of why we put together this webinar and had it as soon as we possibly could to get this in front of you. I trust you guys are all getting the flash notifications that let you know about changes like this that are coming to this environment. So I hope not too much of this is a surprise to people, but that's the thing. Are cross-domain reports possible? I believe so, but I think Magnus, you asked about cross-domain reports. That is something that I don't know the answer to, so Sumeet and I can take it back to R&D and go validate whether you can do reports across domains. The other thing that's nice in Smart Reporting is it is now easier to put direct SQL if you need to have some piece of data that's not supported by the model. So that may give you some other options. That puts us almost at the top of the hour, doesn't it, Seth?
It does. There's one last question that came through in chat instead of the Q&As.
Sure.
Is there a one-to-one mapping of the reporting domains in BDSSA and TSR?
Yeah, that's what I was showing in here.
Okay.
Is that with the exception? I believe the only exception is patching. And I believe that is because I think there were some complications around the patching data, and basically that we ended up with two different domains, patch detail and patch high level, and I'm not really sure why that is, but I know that we ended up with two different areas of coverage. But when I was going through building custom reports, I think I found that, generally speaking, we were able to get most of what we needed out of there.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Well, thank you, Sean. That was a lot to do in an hour, and thank you, Sumeet, for helping, and for the other panelists. Thanks, everybody, for attending. We have all these questions